Hello, Daniel Brottman. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to talk a little bit about like Vibecamp and Twitter and some other things, and I appreciate it. How are you doing?
Great. Some of my favorite topics.
Um, so I'm curious, like, when did you first hear about Vibecamp? Or, like, how did you hear about it?
I stumbled into Teapot, this part of Twitter, around the time when the first Vibe Camp was happening. So I remember people talking about it, and I was just like trying to figure out who are these people, what's going on, and had a sense of like that sounds amazing, and but didn't know it was ever going to be something for me. And then that was Vibe Camp 1, so then I went to Vibe Camps 2 and 3, and now it's like if it happens every year, I'll be there every year.
And then, so what made you decide that it could be for you? Because you said there was a point at which you were like, oh, I'm not sure that's for me. What made you decide to go when you did go?
I guess feeling more like I just knew a lot of people who were going to be there was really helpful, and wanting to meet all these people who some of whom I'd had calls with, but many of whom I'd never seen their faces or gotten any kind of in-person vibe from them. And yeah, just like an intuition. There's some quote about like the first thing you need to do is find the right people, like before you figure out what the problem is or what anything else is. And like, yeah, I want to be in the same place as all these people, and just a sense that that was going to be good.
What is Vibecamp? Like, if you have friends who aren't on Twitter and you're trying to explain it, what do you say?
Yeah, this is a famously difficult question. This is not a good answer, but just before this call, I just for fun I searched vibe in my like Twitter history just to see what would come up, and one friend of mine said something about like treating Vibe Camp as a practice, and I quote tweeted it and I said like all my homies treat Vibe Camp like a practice, and then another friend under that said in the future when people ask what Vibe Camp is, I'm telling them it's a meditation retreat. So this is giving the entirely wrong idea to people because it's I mean there are aspects I do love that there are aspects of Vibe Camp to me that are like a practice, like it's a vibe school. It's like here's this environment where it's a wide open playground, sandbox. There's all these amazing people. People are doing events and stuff. And so if I'm having a bad time, it's like, why? It's because of something that I'm refusing to rest, or I'm believing that I am not allowed to be sad, or something like that. So it does bring up stuff for me that's always a good practice. But that's just one frame for it. Definitely not the only one. I mean, it's a 4 day long party. It's it's a chance to make friendships and like relationships in a way that has very little artifice. It's I like things, I do things where it's like here's this structure and we're going to do this, and here's this vulnerability exercise, and people might do things like that at Vibe Camp, but the point is that you can do whatever you want, and like it's such a wide open canvas that it I think that kind of tends to push me towards authenticity, because if I don't have to sign on to anything I don't want to do. How am I doing? How's this for
That's
a Vibe
great.
Camp description?
Yeah, I love hearing answers like this.
Yeah,
What kind of people go? Like, who would like Vibecamp? Who would enjoy it?
that's an interesting question. Who likes Vibe Camp? Who would like Vibe Camp? I mean, I think, people who want to meet other people. That's a big part of it. Yeah, if you have, I mean, there's a huge range of things people offer, and I wonder if it might be fun to have like a big list, maybe this exists of somewhere, of like the kind of events that have happened, because I feel like that gives such a sense of the vibe. And like even when I've showed people before like my calendar, like I'm the kind of person who loves throwing everything in my calendar. So before Vibe Camp, I'll look at the Vibe Camp calendar and put every event that I might be interested in my Google Calendar, so then I can see like, oh, it's like what I want to do right now, and I'll just look and like see what's around. And it's always extremely packed. There's like four things happening at once. And that's just like the events that I'm interested in. So even that is just a slice of Vibe Camp. It's like I'm not interested in, I don't know, like whatever, certain things, but I'm interested in other things. Who would want to come to Vibe Camp? People who want to um I'm gonna let the wheels turn on this one, but you can interrupt the wheels. People who want to vibe, terrible answer, but the most true answer. I don't know, people who want to just like see what'll happen, who's open to some amount of adventure and serendipity. Um, if there's like a sense, talking to imaginary viewer, if there's a sense you have that like something good might happen, or some good people, you might meet some good people, or like you don't know what. So it's almost like the advice you give to people with plant medicine. Not that it's going to be as intense as like some crazy plant medicine thing, but it's like if you have an intuition that this is a good idea, then like that's a good indicator. um yeah.
I'm curious. So you said, if you go if you want to meet people, but you can meet people at a grocery store. You said something about sense of adventure. You can have a sense of adventure, going
Sure.
mountain biking and things like that. So what I feel like that's maybe not direct crossover with like,
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like, and it's hard for me to even put words to it. And you are fine to like opt out of this question, but like it is a specific kind of person or like a set of specific kinds of people that I think
Right.
resonate most with Vibe Camp, and I'm curious at getting a sense of like what different people think that is.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, the easy answer is like the topics that many people are interested in, and no one is interested in all of the topics of the vibe camposphere, or maybe some people are, but many people are interested in this part or that part. And there's meditation and inner work of various kinds, and AI, and I don't know. I can't speak to the parts that I'm less. I feel like there's a whole tech part, but I'm just like, oh, this is here too. That's cool from my perspective. Um, there's definitely something of a kind of like shared open community, like high trust kind of environment that is really really nice. And a sort of there's no rules, or not many rules, and like let's be good to each other, and figure this out, how to be together for a while. um what was another thought? Yeah, I'm thinking about like the merch store that's just it's just out, and um I guess okay, I need to like shake off some like on camera, stuff that's making it a little hard to tap into just actual authentic answer. I don't know, it's just like good people. Yeah, that doesn't it's uh oh, I'm sorry, this is hard.
Oh
I
no,
don't
need to
have a great
apologize at
answer.
all. No,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think I imagine you're the first one I've done this with, but I imagine
Mm.
that we're gonna get answers ranging from like a super specific list that looks nothing like my list, all the way to like I have
Uh-huh.
no idea. I'm just kind of curious and getting like a sampling of like what different people
Yeah.
say.
What happens?
There's no right answer here. A couple that I think might be part of my list. I think
Yeah.
that um, it's it's a space in which culture war stuff plays less of a part, or if it does, it's more on a meta level. I feel like that's one
Yes.
thing that kind of draws people together is like everyone's kind of like, well, this kind of like polarization, tribalism, whatever is not really what we want. And there are other kinds of tribalism. I mean, we've got the EAC people versus the EA people, and all of that. And those are, but it's a different kinds of culture war maybe that happen there. I feel like, and I think another one, maybe for me personally, the people that I tend to resonate most with, and I don't think this is universal for Vibecamp, but I think a lot of people would probably feel some resonance with, like, you know, a descriptor, something like people for whom the default path didn't work.
Mm.
I think I think there's a lot of people who are just like, felt like they were like born into this box and the box doesn't fit, and then are working to like find their way out of the box and like figuring out what that looks like.
Yeah, I like that. There's definitely a sense of like a different culture being tried on there. What was the first part you said again?
Uh, Kind of like,
Oh, the culture war, absence of culture war.
yeah, or like a different flavor of culture war.
Different flavor of culture war.
It's not so much right versus left. It's like accelerationists versus decelerationist, or like whatever like weird niche thing it is.
Yeah, but even that doesn't feel like it's like I think there's a general value of speaking with people you disagree with and not being like there's disagreements, but it doesn't have the you're wrong and bad and need to be shamed and canceled. You know, I mean, sometimes in the history of this broad scene, there, as you know, obviously, there's been events where something has gone very wrong, and like there's been harder things that have come up, and you know, it's not that no one is allowed to talk about like race or Donald Trump or I don't know something like that, and people do on Teapot. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, for me in Twitter the scene more broadly, there's definitely been a change from a few years ago with my how reactive I was about a lot of these things, and it hasn't changed my most important values or like the I feel like people get triggered around culture things because they're afraid and they want to make sure people are cared for or that they themselves are not attacked, and like I'm still on board with all of that, but I feel like the culture at Vibecamp and in Teapot has taken the inflammation out of a lot of that and made it more possible to hear people with a lot of different ideas, and that's been good.
Yeah, I don't know how publicly I've talked about some of these things, but that there were like a few elements of designing Vibe Camp that I was pretty intentional about. Like one of my requirements for a site was everybody sleeps on site. 'Cause, I mean, initially we had been talking about anything from like a conference at like or like convention type thing at like a
Mm-hmm.
hotel or something. We'd been looking at booking venues and people stay in Airbnbs, things like that. But it was really important for me for people to sleep on site, and that was one of the reasons. Because if you, I think it's a lot easier to sort of dismiss people or dehumanize them when we're sort of in our like, I am out in the world being a human mode. But when you're like getting up and like, groggily going to grab coffee in the morning and you've gotten barely any sleep and you're kind of you're in a different world a little bit. And people, I
Yeah.
believe, talk about that with Burning Man. I forgot what they call it. There's like a term, but I think that like you're a lot more likely to see somebody as a human being, and like same thing with like late at night around the fire. I just think it takes down some of your walls. And then we also another design thing that we ooh, I have told you this before the recording started, but I am watching a very young, very rambunctious puppy who's biting my hands right now. Um, so I think like another element is like our website. We had talked about, I think some people offered to make us a pretty sleek one, and that we didn't want that. I think we're kind of due for an update at some point, but it was pretty intentional to have it be not very polished, and
Mm-hmm.
all of our columns are not very polished. And I like to think that all of these elements sort of contribute to an atmosphere where people are there's less pressure, and it is a little bit easier just to be human with each other, and I think that's really important in especially in this world that we are heading into.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It doesn't feel like a networking event. Who do you know? I
Yeah.
mean, humans are still humans, and there's going to be elements of things like that. But I'm not like getting professional vibes from people. You know, they're
Yeah.
trying to have their walls up. Yeah, and it's tricky because I feel like so many of the things that make Vibe Camp special in that regard, like it's more than just hanging out with your friends. It's actually carefully tending to something beautiful that is growing and is important and needed. Those are the things it's harder to legibilize. It's they're so emergent and like and I sort of have a this like sense that they are there, but part of why they're possible is because I'm not going to a place that's like we are here to craft something new. It's like we're here to hang out and but like that's what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I mean, one direction that I could have going in eventually would be like pop-up city type thing of like a month
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
like what kind of serendipity would happen if you were had the opportunity to kind of be a little bit slower about it and to just
Yeah.
like run into these people who are kind of like view the world a little bit similarly or thinking about kind of some of the same things. Um, those are very like resource intensive
Yeah.
in a lot of senses of the word resource. So
Yeah.
I haven't been actively planning anything, but I think I could be interested in that direction at some point.
Definitely Vibe City when is another one of the tweets that I found this morning looking through my history. I saw someone said something like it was like right after Vibe Camp. Someone tweeted something like I'm gonna try and be the person I was all weekend at work on Monday,
Oh, I love that.
and yeah, yeah, and it's like saying like this is why I propose we all fly to Maryland once a month for regular vibe infusions.
Oh, yeah. So actually, that leads me to another question that I have on my list here. Has Vibe Camp kind of like changed anything about your life? And it's okay if the answer is no.
Partly it's a little tricky because I know that it's and I've heard you talk about how Vibecamp and Teapot are separate and like of course they're not the same thing. They're Vibecamp is a contained thing, but also they're so intertwined for me that I have trouble like being like Vibecamp as separate from Teapot. But at least in regards to that whole thing, I was telling a friend this morning, also in regards to like Teapot still working, like I always think Teapot is. I've never thought it stopped being good. I mean, I wasn't there in the first couple years, so I don't know if it's but whatever. I just had a call with someone I'd never had a call with today who lives halfway across the world, and we had an amazing conversation, and that's the kind of thing that happens all the time. And I was telling them that I don't think really any of the major things that are happening in my life right now would be happening without Teapot and Vibe Camp being part of that. Like my whole life situation, I don't think I would have had the like I don't know, get up and go and courage to and like encouragement to start traveling and like leave my more conventional setup. I certainly wouldn't have had friends all over the country who I could just feel like, hey, can I just, any city in the country I can find people to crash with. And definitely a lot of those people, there's plenty of people who I maybe have met on Twitter, but that got to know better at Vibe Camp, who I have already seen in person in my last half a year of travel, who I'm going to see. And then just like many of the things I'm focusing on, like how to say this in something public, a certain medicine that I am practicing with, and and like this art of accomplishment stuff that I'm really into right now came to my attention through Twitter and through people who are Vibecamp attendees. And yeah, my sense of like what I'm looking for, what it's possible to shoot for in my life, like how good things can get, has been expanded by being part of this network.
So that might be a good segue. So I'm curious also
Yeah.
in asking some questions about Teapot. And as you said, I mean, I can't, I think what I would like to do with Vibecamp is sort of carve out our own sort of like culture space. But we can't disregard the fact that this it was born from
Yeah.
Teapot, and Teapot
Yeah.
has changed over time. So I'm interested in talking a little bit. So what is Teapot?
Um, Teapot is a extremely nebulous term that refers to broadly a whole bunch of people who know some of each other at least on Twitter. Teapot changed my experience of using Twitter completely. It made me realize that this platform is really well suited to journaling in public and being like vulnerable and honest in public and being really fucking funny in public and sharing life-changing ideas and not taking ourselves too seriously and taking things extremely seriously and and I feel like I've seen many times now. I've been in this part of Twitter for it's not a membership, but like I've been around for like 2.5 years or so, and I have a clear memory of like discovering it and just being like almost manically like, look at this amazing person, look at this amazing person, just like collecting all these amazing people to follow, and being just bowled over time and again by like how great this was, and now I've seen many times. This is why I don't understand when people say that it's like not good anymore, because I keep seeing people discover Teapot with tiny accounts and then start sharing about their lives and then and then being you know becoming part of the crowd, and also like I see people sharing about the same things I felt about how it's an amazing scene and they're so happy to have found it. What is Teapot? You know it when you see it. Yeah.
What was that moment of discovery for you? I'm always really interested in everybody has kind of different path towards Teapot. I sometimes think of it as like it's like a black hole, and if they're like, and this is more true I think when there are sim clusters, but I think it's still a little bit true of if you get a little bit too close to some particular big posters, like if you get you see one of their tweets, maybe that's not close enough, but like you get like a little bit too into a thread or like too many
Right.
tweets, then all of a sudden you're just like you get sucked in, you pass the event horizon, and then you
Yes.
can't get back out again.
You can't get back out. I don't know like what tweet did it, but I do remember it was definitely discovering Tashin's account for me,
Mm-hmm.
because I was interested in going to Maple for a while back in the day and discovered Tashin through looking at that. Saw he was on Twitter, saw he was interacting with all these really cool people, and yeah, it's just a it's I don't have any better words than like it's just a vibration raiser. Like I don't know, just like being around good people just makes a difference. And yeah, I remember the way I used to use Twitter. I scrolled back once to look at my like really early tweets before I discovered Teapot, and it's like it's very cringe. It's just like responding to celebrities or like being angry about veganism, like terrible.
Which is how most of the world uses Twitter. I feel like
Yes,
they go there to be mad about
to
things
be mad
or
about things.
yeah.
Yeah, and like when I started discovering like, oh, this is a way to not just like follow celebrities and be useless, but like to connect with people and to meet people. Someone had a definition of Teapot like it's people who thought it was a good idea to make friends online, you know. And it's also definitely people who love language, people who love words. I I mean, to like tweeting is just talking, tweeting is journaling, tweeting is signaling, can be, but it's also like expression and like it's engagement with an art form over a long period of time. And of course, now it's really different because some people have long tweets and all that. But even so, that's just another part of the system. But there's something so great about. I've always loved miniatures, even when I was studying classical music, when I was studying art, I've always loved pieces of work that are really small and contained. And so that's probably one of the reasons I love Twitter too. And it can be a forum for longer, bigger ideas. Teapot. It's like I have a home base now. It's like I tweet to connect with people and to share ideas, but like I feel like something that like a poster understands is like I tweet for myself. Like I tweet because I am working through my thoughts and like I am making a record for myself of what's important to me, what's funny to me, what's hard for me.
Yeah.
And that sense of like I'm writing because I want to write and because I like this tweet and so I want to tweet it is like that's the sense that I learned from interacting with Teapot, and I feel like that's what allows people to get to know me and for me to get to know other people is because it's like I'm seeing this like no one tweets all your tweets but you, and so you're the only thing connecting them, and so when I see someone else's tweets I'm getting a sense of them, and it's amazing. Like I don't mean this to be like tooting my own horn or whatever, but like people message me all the fucking time and tell me how much they appreciate what I'm writing. And like, it doesn't surprise me as much anymore because it's happened a bunch, but it still surprises me that people feel seen or met or something by me writing about my thoughts for myself openly
Yeah.
and out there. And it's part of something that leads to like incredible serendipity happening. Like, I mean, of course, there's stories of people finding their spouse or whatever. There's all kinds of collaborations. There's things like Vibecamp coming out of Twitter. This I'm in this really wonderful online course right now that's super expensive that I wasn't going to be able to do because it costs like a third of my net worth, and I wrote about it, and someone I didn't know messaged me and said, I like your account and I've done this course and I want you to be able to do it and I have plenty of money and I'm going to sponsor you to do it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was like manic for 3 days after that. I was like, what the fuck is happening? What the hell? The quality, it's like, you know, it like the quality of people that I have too many. This is the problem I have is I know too many really amazing people. And I meet amazing people in other places in my life. Like I've met amazing people here where I am right now, but it kind of astounds me how many people it's incredible that I'm connected with, and it's become normal. It's like, yeah, I'm just talking to someone who founded this, but lots, so many people, and uh, and I feel like Twitter and the norms that Teapot has within Twitter are just really effective at making that energy channel clearer, of like, you know, if I have certain great vibes around the kind of kindness that's in my heart and the kind of openness to meet people where they're at and the kind of interest in really, deep things in consciousness or in the world or various systems. I mean, every major topic is talked about on Teapot. It's not just it's it's art and it's trashy TV and like anything can be talked about. But if I have that kind of energy, then the people around me in real life space will, there's a kind of attractor thing that happens. And what Teapot allows is for that to be worldwide and for us to, find each other in greater numbers and in greater resonance than can happen easily in one community. What Teapot doesn't allow is being face to face with people. And there's certain kinds of that energy really syncing up that is not impossible maybe, but maybe it is impossible. It's very difficult for that to happen without breathing the same air and being in the same room as someone. And that's what Vibecamp is so good for. That's why Vibecamp is so good. And so I feel like one of the ways to think about the project that we're all engaged in is we're learning to make everything resonant and how to say this? It's clear in my head, but I don't know how to make it there's a lot of ways in which we're all very disconnected, all of us humans. And for a certain type of person, Teapot and Twitter is really good at getting some kind of wavelength of the human psyche to meet each other and be like, oh, you too. And because it's a text-based platform, that's biased towards thoughts that happen in words. And that's not all of what it is to be human, but it's a really important part of what it is to be human. And it's surprising. There's a limitation to how far thinking good thoughts can take you, but it's also surprising how really transformative. I mean, to get on my Buddhist nerd for a moment, that's why right view and right intention are the beginning of the path. This doesn't matter, but it's because it makes such a difference what kind of views you have, and those things are really impacted by who you talk with. So it's there's dense structure, and the little thinky bit at the top is really getting good from Twitter, and then there's things like Vibecamp and all kinds of, as a million other meetups that happen that let the middle part shake out even more and get even more connected. Is this metaphor making sense?
Oh yeah, totally.
Cool. Okay, great.
Yeah. It kind of, there was something that I wanted to kind of double click on, because you
Yeah,
had
do
said
it.
that there's a way of using Twitter where you kind of you're sharing who you are, you're broadcasting your thoughts a little bit. And I think that that's one really important element of all of this, where when you do that, then people see that and oh, that resonates with me. And
Yeah.
then you kind of, and you are seeing the same thing with other people. And I also, I laughed when you said that you know too many amazing people, because I'm running into the same thing. I literally do not have time to develop deep relationships with all the people that I want to.
Yes.
And it is an amazing problem to have. And
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy. It's almost it's similar. I haven't had this thought before, so I don't know that I super endorse it, but it just occurred to me. It's sort of similar to where you go to San Francisco and there's just crazy, crazy disparity in wealth. Of the billionaires, and
Yeah.
then the very destitute homeless people. It's almost like we are the billionaires in social wealth, and the
Yeah.
rest of the world are the destitute people, because there's a real, I think I tweeted one time that the loneliness crisis has been solved. It's just not evenly distributed yet. I feel like there are people here who have figured out how to go on the internet, find the people around the world that you really, really vibe with, that you share values with, that are your people. Because we're just, I think culture's gotten so fragmented. You're not guaranteed. It's not even very likely that the people you are neighbors with in any given place are going to be the people
Yeah.
that you really have that kind of values alignment, vibe alignment, whatever you want to call it with, but they're out there. The world's a big place. They're out there.
Yes.
And so we have like sort of like very organically bottoms up figured out this way to like go on the internet, find those people and then build real relationships with them. And so
Hmm.
that's one of the things that I think about a lot is like how do we like clue in other people that like this is
Yeah.
possible. Like you don't have to be feeling bad. Like that you can. Like, my social needs are basically met. It's great. Like I am
Yeah.
historically somebody who has trouble saying no to things, and it's getting easier just because like I have such a high bar now. I don't need to go like to whatever
Yeah.
random house party and like meet a bunch of people because like I have such amazing people already. It's like
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. My immediate family are like not the most social outreach people, and they think I'm a bit of an alien, you know. It's like I'm always saying, oh, this friend, I have a call with this friend, I have a call with this friend, I'm seeing this person. And I yeah, 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 yeah. And it's tricky. It's like, how do we, it's like, okay, we've been in this thing for long enough that we can see this is happening, and now we can have an intention to like, we want, how do we help more people see this great thing that's happening? And it's hard to figure out what exactly are the elements that are crucial to it or not crucial to it, because you know, like some people just aren't gonna like being on their phones as much as we all do, or whatever. And so, but there is, yeah, there is something really special we've stumbled into.
I'm curious. I think by the way, this has been amazing. I just like I forgot I at certain points I like wrote down timestamps of like when you said a banger. And this is really really good stuff. I'm so excited. Um, but I'm curious. I think we covered a lot there. I'm curious what to go back to Vibe Camp for a moment.
Yeah.
What would your dream be of like what Vibe Camp could become? What should it become?
Oh, that's great. I love that. Yeah, it's like, how long term does one think? It's like, I mean, my obviously my one of my dreams is that Vibe Camp happens every year for a long time. I don't know how these things go. Like, I haven't been to Burning Man. I'm not sure how these things that have been around for decades, you know, how they keep it, like, there's a natural life cycle, so it's not to be fought against in some sense. For something that's around a long time, some things about it are going to get more stable and solidified, and that's okay. But also, like, to keep it really open to reimagining and re-evolution and things like that. I think even if Vibe Camp was something that stayed at like it never gets more than 1,000 people and it's mostly the same crowd. I don't know if that how financially possible or any of that would be, but even if that's what it happened, it would be so good for those people that it would be really generative of a lot of external wonderful things in coming from them, and would just be really good for those of us who get to experience it. And part of me feels like greedy, like I don't want it to get too big. I want it to, but yeah, I mean, in terms of other things, like I love the idea of Vibe City, of pop up city thing happening. I think that so if you come back to the metaphor before about like there's this intellectual level that so many of us can find each other on and enjoy huge amounts of complexity and connection with, even just on that level on the internet, on Twitter. And then Vibe Camp is one of these places where there's an even deeper possibility of that is possible because we're in person, because it's a 4-day event, because we're waking up in tents and cabins next to each other and going to breakfast, and and there's a pool. One of my dreams for Vibe Camp is that someone builds a sauna. Yeah. So, but in terms of like the project and the beautiful thing that we're like, how does how does that get deeper into our bodies and into our hearts and into our understanding? And probably a lot of different ways. So yeah, definitely, Vibecamp wasn't even the first one of these things, but it's definitely, I think, been the impetus for a lot of different events happening. So for there to be many events like this throughout the world with different characters and different things, that's really good. Yeah, and I think for there to be longer events would be probably really fruitful for whoever is able to make those happen. And yeah, different types of things like the School for the Socially Inept that you created, I'm sure had a lot of really similar amazing effects that Vibecamp had, but probably, focused in on a particular, it was a different kind of container. And so I wasn't really involved in all, but I imagine that it had really wonderful effects that Vibecamp wasn't able to have, but it's part of, like, it's not part of the, I don't remember if it was even technically part of the Vibecamp umbrella or not, but like, but it's part of the same like phenomenon of like this group of people meeting each other, getting really resourced, figuring out how to go the next level down in the fractal towards even more breadth of connection and even more depth of connection and even more like finding authenticity with each other. And and um and yeah, I think one of the things that maybe connects a lot of people at Vibe Camp is an ethos around like some serious leveling up is possible. And of course there's this paradox between like, this is something that's very alive for me right now in my own inner exploration about like not like how to how to really go after the kinds of leveling up or like freedom that are possible. Like, yeah, you can talk at a camera every day and you'll get more comfortable talking, and like that's amazing, and that will lead, like, the reason that's good, as an example, right, is because it leads to making you better at connecting with people, and this whole thing that we're trying to get all the kinks out of, is served by those skills, and your own life is served by those skills. I'm obviously making educated guesses. I'm not trying to tell your experience, but like that's how I would think about that. And oh, I lost my train of thought a bit. But like, yeah, just how can that continue? I want Vibecamp to stay in the game of helping us all continue. I remembered. So wanting to level up in these ways, but also not making that a way to judge ourselves or think that we're not perfect, that everything isn't perfect in this moment already.
I love that so much. Um, what's one thing you would change about Vibe Camp if you could?
Sauna.
Oh, okay. I'm ready for that one.
There's a there's a sauna where I am right now, and it's just great. But what were you saying? Sorry.
Do you have any experience building saunas?
No.
Okay.
Love that question though.
The site that we use in Maryland is really, they're really, really open to us actually making like infrastructural changes to the site as like kind of like gifts to the site and like for
Yeah.
future events to use and things like that, which I think is a really sweet idea. So it is possible, and I don't think they're that hard to build. And we can
Yeah.
go with a building crew like 3 days early to do things like that. So it is possible that we could build one if somebody wanted to take charge on it, take lead on it.
That would be so cool. That would be so cool. Building that's not my
Yeah.
expertise.
Yeah.
I'd be up for lending a hand, but someone else has to know how to do it, or I could,
Yeah.
But yeah, I do have a friend who's building a sauna at his place. He's the kind of person. I do meet people who are not online people who I'm like, you should, and I tell them sometimes you could come to this. There's this thing called Vibe Camp, and like you could come, and I think you would like it. And I'm a little, again, it's like I don't know exactly what makes the mystery, because for me, part of the Vibe Camp greatness is like everyone here knows my insane internet brain,
Yeah.
That's part of what makes it so great. But I know there are people who've come who are not online people who have a great time, right? I mean, I'm sure you know many cases
Yeah,
more
yeah.
than me. Yeah. And so there are people who I'm like, you should come. So my one friend who might know how to build a sauna, but yeah, that's a fun answer. I wonder if there's any other answers to the question, what would I change about Vibe Camp? I really like it. Yeah, I would be interested in a longer, as you know, like a week long vibe camp even.
Yeah.
I think that would be really fun. And there's events. There's an event here, the place where I'm at. As I said, it's this Contact Improv Retreat Center, and throughout the year they do these like multi-day jams. So like in the fall, there's one that's it's like the same length as Vibe Camp. Like you get there in the afternoon. There's 2 full days, and then a morning. And those were both amazing experiences. And also, like, Vibe Camp has taught me how to vibe, right? So this is a similar place. It's a different kind of container because like it's focused around contact improv, but it's still very open. It's like, what do you want to do right now? That's always the question at Vibe Camp. Like, you can do whatever you want right now. So what do you want to do? And facing that question a lot is helpful. And 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 it's kind of similar here. It's very different than Vibe Camp, but there's similarities in that, like a lot of really great people, and there's workshops you can go to or not go to, and it's intense, and there's highs and lows, and then they have two a year in the winter around New Year's and in the summer that are a week long. And a lot of people told me apparently last year's Winter Jam was like really intense politically, but a lot of people told me I came to the Winter Jam this year, and people were like, "Oh, it's like really intense. It's like a whole week," and I was like, "Oh." But then after going through it, my experience was like, "Gosh, the other ones are too short." You know, it's like this one had space. I could take a nap, and like I could get to really know people a lot better. So obviously, I'm sure there's a million difficulties in making an event that's a week long instead of 4 days long. But that's one I would go in for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we have definitely considered
Yeah.
extending it a few times. We've gotten mixed feedback about that.
Yeah.
Some people are
Yeah.
really excited about it, and some people are like, no.
Totally.
We'll see what the future holds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess if I end up including this in a longer interview, I would be, if somebody knows of a space, that's one thing that I don't want to do is figure out food for people. Like I don't want to be like in charge of assigning meal times or meal prep or whatever. If it's possible, if I found a venue that was good for a week to a month, and there was somebody who wanted to do food things, or it provided food within like a reasonable price range, I would be open to considering hosting a smaller, longer event. So I guess if anybody watching this is a good venue for that, let me know. I'm not actively planning one now, but I could be convinced.
I wonder. I don't know how much it costs to rent out Earth Dance where I am right now, but it's a fucking dope place. They rent it out.
Which state is it in?
It's in Massachusetts. It's in Western Mass.
Well, if you can find out some pricing information.
Oh my god, I would love a big teapot gathering here. And there's room for at the big events in the summer. There can be 150 people here because people can camp too, as well as like this is the room I'm in right now. I happen to be alone in it right now. More participants are coming, but this is one of the smaller rooms. And they also there's bunk beds that can be in here and stuff. And yeah, that makes me really, if you sell tickets, you can have money, right? So like, I would love that. I would so love Earth Dance Teapot thing to happen. I'm gonna look into this.
So I'm curious, just on your personal preference here. So one of the
Yeah.
things that I'm kind of less interested in doing more vibe camp style things where it's just like super big and open ended, and the point is to vibe. I'm really interested in sort of having like a topic that
Yeah.
everyone is there to work on, or like talk about. Like one of the things that I've got like a small group of friends slash collaborators that I'm sort of collecting with the intention of doing, we all kind of like feel like cancel culture isn't really helpful,
Hmm.
and you need to figure out something to do about bad actors.
Yeah.
And so one of my ideas is to do a pretty like time bounded, like short retreat type thing where that's what we talk about, and the goal is to put out a blog post. And you probably won't come up with solutions, but at least like coming up with a series of questions that we should be asking, I think would be really powerful. I'm sure there are like plenty of other topics that would be really, really great to get like a group kind of focused on.
Yeah.
What would your feeling be about like a series of longer Teapot events where there was kind of like a topic of focus?
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. And that's kind of along what I was some of the idea I was having, like not that specifically, but when you asked like what do I want Vibe Camp to evolve into, it's like I want it to I I I want Vibe Camp itself to like to be what it is, what it already is, because I think it's really helpful for there to be a space that's really agendaless, because then anything can come out of it. And right, and something like School for the Socially Inept is like, what if we had this particular focus and we all got together with that in mind? And so this is another, to me, this sounds like another version of that, where it's like we have this particular focus about like, what do you do about bad actors? Like, and that's very like, I don't, that particular event, I'm curious, I don't know how you would make progress because it's so hard. And it's so context dependent too. Every community is different. And like my first thought for something like that is like you do a bunch of circling about the topic, basically. What was the question you asked me exactly? Like, how do I?
Just how would you feel about yes, doing longer events, but
Yeah,
having them have a sort of focused topic where there's a goal at the end?
yeah. I think it's definitely an experiment. Like it's worth running that experiment at minimum. Yeah, and it could be really good. Yeah. There's another question
I mean,
about like
that one's a heavy one. They don't all need to be that heavy. That's just
right.
what's been top of mind for me because it's been an active part of like
Yeah.
figuring
Do
how
you
to
have any
make this
other
work.
ideas like
So I'm
about?
really, really interested in network society-ish. I don't think it would look. It's very like I've lots of different, mostly very fragmented thoughts about that. But I think that
Uh-huh.
Teapot is the most robust example of like an extant network society going on right now. And I think there are more steps that we could take in that direction. And what does that look like? I think
Yeah.
that's a really interesting topic. I also think that like just these are just things that are really personally would be really interesting to me to work on.
Yeah.
Another one is like I think that something like leveling up in wisdom as a species is existentially important.
Yeah.
As we're getting, it may be even too late. As we're getting closer to a world where people can like make their own bioweapons and stuff like that. Like we need to be able to like figure out how to like heal people at scale. And
Yep.
so, and that's another one where like I would love to get together some of these like
I want to go to that one.
like I think that we have like some people who are like actually really capable of like both coming up with things to try and then also like capable of coordinating people around it and having a voice.
Yeah. That's like the most exciting thing to me.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like I am so interested, aside from just like not wanting to suffer and wanting to be happy. That's like one of the reasons why I'm so interested in in how did you put it, like wisdom, raising the level of wisdom or something.
Something like, I mean, there's a bunch of different. It just depends on who I'm talking to and like what comes to mind. There's like a bunch of different
Yeah.
pointers that I use, but it's like all kind of like golden age for humanity. Maybe is like there's like a bunch, but like
Right. Right.
something there where like we need to figure out how to like overcome trauma. I think like that's like at the core of a lot of people's disagreements with each other. It's so funny being in my position, particularly watching discourse happen on Twitter where like using the that I just had a sort of like ill advised thread on the nudity, which we're not going to get into right now, but it was really interesting watching some of the little side arguments that happened there because not all of them, but some of them I knew that those people had beef with each other, and they were the outlet was an argument about something, and I don't know that they would have had those like very very strong opinions about this thing had they not already had problems with each other
Yeah.
that I just happen to know about because I'm friends with them or because I whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I like I think when you take that, it's kind of a similar phenomenon as like people, I've seen people tweet maybe like, oh, when somebody tweets like all men are like this, they really mean one specific man from their history is like this.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that kind of happens at scale with humanity, where like a lot of our opinions about politics and about gender and race and all these things are really related to like very very personal things that we are angry about or getting reactive because of, and that if we could learn how to sort of like collectively regulate our own emotions better, and even just be more aware of our emotions and motivations and all these things, it could have just drastic impact on
Yeah.
global peace. I don't know, there's a
Right.
better word for it, but you know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I like can't sign on the dotted line enough about that. I'm so on board. That's what you know, it's, you know, starting a conversation like, what do you like about Vibecamp or Teapot? I'm like, I like it a lot. I don't know, but like in this conversation we can get here. I'm like, oh wait, yeah, that's it actually, and yeah, and I think that yeah, there's many possible ways. Um, this I feel like a little I'm no I feel like a cultist or something in asking well in asking, it's just what's that great? I think I don't follow this. He's famous guy. Like everything is monocausal. It's specifically whatever I'm on about right now. It's like a great
I get
tweet. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's a bunch of people who are like really super well known who I like don't like their tweets, and so I like don't follow them or I have them muted or something.
I
Anyway,
won't tag him in this story.
yeah, or just. But anyway, okay, I'm dancing around this for no reason. Um, the thing I'm on about right now is Art of Accomplishment and Joe Hudson because it feels so good. It feels so clean at leveling at like going right at the place where people need to level up, and it's like, you know, like, as you know, I'm like really into meditation and awakening and that whole thing, and like, and I do think all of that is really important, and you know, but it's also there's many layers of what it is to be human, and that's like the one that's like let's focus on this fundamental confusion at the very bottom of all of it, and I think that that is probably going to be a necessary thing that humanity as a whole realizes at one point. And I think that's possible. And it might not be the most skillful thing. It might not be the thing that we need to have more focus on. Like I'm for more availability of good meditation instruction. Like I'm all for that. But there's a way in which the stuff that's being taught at Art of Accomplishment to me seems to be like really like going right at the implications of that clearing up that fundamental understanding as it relates to being aware of your emotions and having your boundaries and speaking your truth and like all this stuff that that we need to avoid the doomsday scenario.
Yeah.
So that's like my lead. That's like my best lead right now. And I'm curious, do you like them? Do you know about them? Are you have you interacted with them? Do you are interested in that?
Yeah. I mean, I've sort of been following it from a distance.
Yeah.
Everything I've seen seems really, really great. I haven't taken it myself, but I really like Joe's tweets. I've heard really good things about him as a person. I've heard really good things about the course.
Yeah.
I have described Vibecamp before to people as almost like sort of like a mixing pot where, and maybe that's not the right, what have I said? Where sort of a place. It's top of funnel in a few different senses, but the
Uh-huh.
one I'm sort of leading to here is like you get exposure to a bunch of different sort of healing modalities. You
Yep.
get exposed to like jhanas, you get exposed to IFS, you get exposed to like, and even the stuff like micro solidarity. People can go or like learn about Cabin or Fractal or all these like different communities, different ways of looking at the world, different ways of healing. And I think Art of Accomplishment. I think that's one of the really powerful things about it. Is you're the I'm so sorry. I gave her this other chew thing because I thought it would be quieter and keep her occupied. Landing it against the floor. Um, but I think that that's one of the really powerful. You just go and you're like, oh, there are all these. Like maybe I could try that, or maybe I could try that, and maybe one thing will work for a while, and then you'll kind of like incorporate it into your what's the word I'm thinking of. Embody it, whatever, integrate it,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, yeah.
and maybe there's something else that you can go learn a bunch of things from. And so I think that's, even though it is only 4 days, that's one of the powerful things about it. If
Yeah.
you are looking for those things, they are out there.
Yeah. 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 I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah. There's many. Hmm. Yeah. I guess just in my um yeah, I don't believe in like being like evangelizing too hard or being pushy or something, but just like since this is the topic of our conversation of like how do we level up humanity, my my one of my I'm like we'll see how it goes. I do have a tendency to get really excited about current thing, um, and this is current thing for me. But yeah, it just feels like they've hit on some really key ingredients that I'm interested in scaling, and they seem to be scaling themselves very effectively with no help from me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. Oh, I know what I would like to leave this on. So, how do you personally make friends on Twitter? Because I am sort of intending to cut these
Hmm.
up, put some videos on different platforms. So if
Yeah.
somebody's watching this and they think of Twitter as a cesspool, and there's like, oh, it's just a place you go to be angry, what would you
Right.
recommend? What worked for you to go there and make friends?
Yeah. I love making friends on Twitter. As previously discussed, it is a problem, actually. Because there's too many friends. Um, how do I make friends on Twitter? I first I tweet regularly, every day, like from my heart. Like I just try and share really honestly, not as a way, not like, but just like what's happening for me, what I care about, what feels most true to me, what's really funny to me, what's really interesting to me. I tweet what I care about and I'm interested in, and and this allows people to find me, and then I also find people by seeing their tweets. So once now I'm just, there's like a huge network, so it's very easy to be discovering people. But at the beginning, like you just find a handful of people to follow who seem cool, and and just engage with their tweets and like see who's replying to them and go look at those person's tweets, and like pretty soon one discovers there's this huge feast of amazing people. And I just kind of, it's like it's gradual. It's like at first I see a tweet from someone that I like. It's it shows that they're connected to the part of them that really cares about themselves or other people, or it's genuine in some way, or it's really funny, or it's really insightful, or I just want to be closer to them, so I follow them. Maybe we have a conversation off the bat. Maybe eventually we have a conversation and just like hang around, and eventually conversations happen, and some people, it always surprises me when some people are like really I understand because I this all happened to me at the beginning too, but now it's less like some people are really afraid to like DM someone. Some people are really afraid to like have a video call with someone, but it's so easy and it's so worthwhile. So yeah, I'll just sometimes I just have an impulse to like DM someone and be like, hey, I love this about you. So, whatever, happy to be connected, or talk about some specific thing. So just like follow any impulse you have to connect with someone, basically, is the general advice. Follow any impulse you have to connect with someone, and that can be in the replies, that can be in DMs, and follow any impulse you have to ask someone for a phone call or for a video call. That's a really key part. I mean, there are a handful of people who I feel pretty connected to who I haven't had calls with, but at this point, a few years in, it's like I've had I, like this happened to me recently. There was someone who I was interacting with a lot, and I was like, I still haven't had a call with this person. Like, it's not, there's something wrong there. So I just messaged them. And we chatted in DMs before, but I messaged them. I was like, hey, like, I would love to have a call with you. I want to know you better. And we just had a call this morning, and now I know them better. And like, that's just like another, now when I interact with them on Twitter, there's so much more context for the kind of energy they have, and just like I've heard a lot more about their life now, and yeah, so just like share openly and follow any impulse to connect, and you will
I love
find
when you
people.
start. Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I love when you start hearing tweets in people's voices. It's like
Yeah,
when you learn their voice enough, you can just like they're reading it, and you're like, oh yeah, that is so and so.
yeah, yeah.
And I think there's something there too about the humanizing aspect of all of this, because
Yes.
it's really it's a lot harder to just like be very dismissive of people when you have a little bit more texture about who
Uh
they
huh.
are. They're not just
Yeah.
a faceless avatar. You remember that this is a human being that like I played catch with, or I
Hmm.
guess I don't know how to
That's what I do with my friends. This is a great example.
okay, maybe danced with or had breakfast with or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
or you know had a long Zoom
Or
call
even
with.
just had a Zoom call with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I feel like this has gone way longer than I was thinking. Like, oh, I'm not going to take too much of his time. Maybe we'll be like 15 minutes, just ask a few questions. This has been a great conversation.
Cool.
It's been nourishing for me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Is there anything that you want to shill?
Oh, that I want to shill. Oh, I get to shill now. Well, first I just want to just like thank you too for the conversation and for having the time, because it took a while for me to like get into real relating and like not be like, oh. So I appreciate that we had enough time to do that.
Yeah, you did really
Yeah.
well. This is a great conversation. I
Yeah.
really said
Thanks,
a lot
bro.
of like very, I don't know, powerful things.
Awesome. That's great. I don't have anything really specific to shill. Definitely invite anyone who doesn't know me to find me on Twitter and say hello. You can DM me. You can reply to my things. You know, whatever. And if you want to be connected, that's really good. I do have a I do have a desire to be doing more meditation teaching, and I want to be. There's a lot of stuff that I'm planning to. I want to like really get to the bottom of my feelings about a number of topics related to that, like exploring all my feelings about like who am I to be teaching this, and all my feelings about how does money relate to teaching this practice, and do I want to be completely on donation, or do I want to, I don't know, all those kinds of questions. What do I think meditation is good for? What do I think meditation is not good for? So like I have a lot of personal work that I want to do, and I have like essays I want to write. So I'm like really clear about that before I start being more active in in looking for people to help with the skills that I have. But but I also have been doing teaching in that way for some time. It's all been on by free or by donation so far, and that's I'm happy to continue that at least for the time being. And I also might be making like a 8-week introduction course at some point, so that might happen.
Ooh, very cool.
So that's the only thing I would say in terms of like things I'm offering at the present moment is like if you want help with meditation from someone who's done a lot of Buddhist style meditation, especially early Buddhist style meditation and some other things, then I like helping people with that, and you're welcome to get in touch.
Where do people find you on the internet?
Twitter.com/Daniel Brottman. That's my main page. I do have a Substack too. I guess I could show my Substack. Yeah, I think it's just Substack danielbrottman.substack.com, which is nice too, and I definitely love having people read that, and I'm sharing there regularly. Yeah, those are the two main places where I'm publicly on the
Great.
internet
I
so
will
link.
link those in the in the description for this. And
Yeah,
Thank you again. And yeah, Vibe.camp is our website. You can get tickets at my.vibe.camp. It is June. Oh gosh, if I get this wrong, that's gonna be quite embarrassing. I believe it's June 19th through the 22nd in Maryland. And then we also we encourage people to go and get Airbnbs and hang out together like the week before and the week after because it is a really jam-packed 4 days. It's hard to like really make deep connections, and that gives you more time to be spacious and hang out with people at a slower pace and build real deeper connections. So that's coming up this summer. All right. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Thanks, Brooke.